Democrats are coming out swinging tonight. They're not waiting. They're putting this marker down right now, and I'm reporting this for the first time on MSNBC. They intend to request the returns. That was one of the big stories we were breaking on election night 2018, that when the Democrats took back the House, sources were already telling us that they wanted to lay down a marker that the Democrats would pursue Trump's tax returns under a law that empowers a key House chairman, Richard Neal, to demand them, and that's without any wider vote in the Republican-held Senate. Today, that chairman began dismissing President Trump's first defense on this, that the IRS should hold back his returns, while Trump claims they're still under audit.
There are a series of other options going forward that we will explore, but we've already begun to think about them.
Are you considering subpoenas?
Well, that's something that we would have to consider down the road.
What did you make of the president yesterday saying that he's still under audit?
Well, I mean, the IRS is pretty clear on that you can release your tax forms even if you are under audit.
Joining me now is Congressman Bill Pascrell, who serves on the Ways and Means Committee and has been a big part of the push to get Trump's taxes. Good evening, sir.
Harry, how are you?
I'm good. I saw your chairman there. You know, he's a pretty even-keeled person, the way he talks.
On target. He's always on target.
Well, walk us through what he's on target about in your view tonight.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I said walk us through what you were just saying. You think he's on target. Why?
I think he's methodical. I think he's done the right thing in sending the letter that we are able to do under the law, 6103. It's in the code. Read it. I asked the president to read that, with all due respect. And he has definitely laid out, Richie Neal, basically what has happened and what will happen. Sent the letter to the IRS. So when the president says this evening that he is not going to comply, it doesn't matter what he says. The letter was sent to the IRS. We're asking the IRS, which has never refused anything in this case under this law in the history of this country since 1924. We're asking them to give the documents to the committee. They will be held respectfully. We need a committee vote if everything or anything is going to be let out under the law, and then we'll see. All you want to do is put the facts on the table. I want to know if the President of the United States, we'll start here, Harry. We want to know if the President of the United States has paid his fair share like you have and like I have and like every American pays. That's the first thing we need to know. Now, this is not going to be simply looking at a 1040. That's only a simple document. These are hundreds and thousands of pages that this president, because he has extended business dealings, which is all legal to do something like that, depending on what's in the details. But he can do that. But we want to know what's in those details about his financial.
And you've been pressing on this. I know that you've long said
2 years.
You've been leading on it. And I remember I interviewed you about it a while back before your committee, had subpoena power here, had the gavel, had the power to invoke it under this law. Now, everyone knows in Washington one of your best friends is Steve Mnuchin, right?
No.
No? I must have gotten confused. Well, let's look at a little highlight reel of you giving him a bit of a hard time at an oversight hearing. Take a look.
Mr. Trump claimed President Trump, he would not personally benefit from the tax cuts in the tax bill of December of 2017. How can we know without seeing his tax returns?
Well, I'm not aware of the president's financial situation other than what I read in
Apparently nobody is.
Apparently nobody is. What are you getting at there, and how much of this is about transparency, which would be oversight for the government, and how much of it is about giving the person in the opposing party, this president, a hard time? Is that really a good use of your chairman's power? Some people criticizing you guys for that.
Harry, I believe in transparency my whole political life. And the first thing I did on February the 1st of 2017 was to write a letter to Kevin Brady, who was the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee at that time, since the Republicans were in control up until just a few months ago. And I said, why don't we do this together? Because this is the first president since Richard Nixon that has not submitted his taxes of the last 4, 5, 6, 10 years, whatever.
But it was never really an issue for Nixon, right? That worked out fine.
Well, we got $500,000 more into the revenue because he was holding back on some taxes. And he said, well, we got to find this out because I want people to know I'm not a crook. And of course, you saw the rest of that drama. What happened?
Do you think you'll have to go to court in the 10 seconds we have left?
No, I think that we sent it to the IRS. The IRS has to stand up tall. Now, if the IRS has anyone interfere with what they're going to do, then we'll have another problem. This is not over by any stretch of imagination. I said from the beginning, let's put it all on the table. We can exonerate the president very easily. What is he hiding? And that is the major question, Harry. What is he hiding? And for the Republicans to say that this is rummaging in privacy, they have a very short history up here, because they went after 51 people, if you remember, when they were going after Miss Lerner when she was the head of the IRS.
Yeah, I do remember that issue.
Yeah, and they used this very law. They used this very law.
Right.
See, look, we're all equal. That means something. So, Harry, you better pay your fair share, and Pascal, you better pay your fair share. I want to know if the president does it. Then we'll find out if there's any conflicts.
Do you refer yourself in the third person, but without the honorific? I mean, you earned that title. I would think you'd address yourself as Congressman Pascrell.
You don't know me then.
I know you a little. I've interviewed you about this very topic. It's very interesting seeing what the committee's doing. And Congressman, you've been serving for.
And you know what, Harry? This is like the other three congressmen of the judiciary, the oversight, et cetera, Schiff, Nadler, and Cummings. They're doing a fantastic job. This is not a political witch hunt on the part of the Congress of the United States. These are dedicated people.
I asked you that because we hear that from a lot of Trump allies. And as you know, on this show, we have Trump allies, we have Trump aides when they come on. We have your perspective. So, Congressman Pascrell, I'll use the honorific. I always enjoy talking to you. Thanks for coming on.
My honor.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.